Joined today by Coach Ryan Ritter, head coach at Bethune Cookman. And first of all, Coach, how you doing?
Hey Pete, doing about as well as we can during this time.
Well, the format's going to be the same, of course, as really all of these. And my first question for you is, I know that you sent out surveys to your black players, and on the topic of whether or not they experienced race-related, unwarranted, either nonviolent police harassment or non-lethal police brutality. And I'd love to know the results of that survey, please.
We were very candid with our guys and sent out the information that was presented in terms of the unwarranted suspicion, guys that have been pulled over by cops for no reason, or if they've been physically threatened or harmed. And of the 14 guys on our team, players and coaches, 10 or 11 of those guys have experienced at least one of those situations.
So way more than half.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a math major, but that's right around 75%.
And so my follow-up question would be, because of course the point I'm trying to drive home to what Dr. King called the white moderates, is that the nonviolent police harassment and the non-lethal police brutality are part of the overall protest and are also related to the blatant murders that we see as well. And so I'm curious to know if your number is way more than half in the 70% range, do you consider this problem to be isolated or more pervasive that needs to be faced?
Well, I don't think there's any question with the data. This is not an isolated event. When you're talking about 70 to 75% of the population on our team and staff, unfortunately, it's not an isolated event.
Coach, I really appreciate your time, and I'm curious if you have anything else you'd like to add, kind of impromptu, on top of sharing the data from the members of your team.
Just on top of that data, we spent a lot of time with our guys. Obviously being a white coach at a historically black institution, there's a lot of uniqueness to it. We embrace it. It's awesome. But really talking to each one of those guys, the thing that I've found, unfortunately, is they're starting to lose hope. And I think when you lose hope, whether it's in a system, whether it's in a team, whether it's in a goal, that's when some things can really go off course. And it's really sad for some of our guys now that they are really losing hope in their futures. They're losing hope that they can walk down the sidewalk in safety. They're losing hope that they're going to be able to make a change in their lifetime. So, sending this survey out to them and really understanding the inside of their hearts, it was sad, but it was necessary to understand that, hey, there's a lot of things that we got to do better as a nation, and specifically as basketball coaches to change this thing.
Well, what I appreciate about that is, and about you, is that you're not only listening, you're also acting, and you're trying to do something to make it better. White people absolutely need to listen to black people. It's just that that's not the only thing we need to do. We need to speak up, use our voices. We need to act to use our position or our power. And I certainly appreciate you being willing to step up and try to do something about this problem, because the simple reality is that we still live in a society that treats black people grossly unfairly, not just criminal justice, although that's the main direct cause behind these particular protests, but it's banking, it's apartment rentals, it's the entire employment system, it's across the board. And you have a unique perspective to understand that. And so I really appreciate you lending your voice, listening, but also speaking up and acting. And my great hope is that someday the cavalry will come. And the cavalry is the 80% of white people who are maybe reasonably not ill-intentioned, but are unfortunately far too indifferent. And I hope that stories from people like you and data from people like you can help move them gradually to be the cavalry that not just black people need, but that our nation needs. So I really appreciate your time greatly and your actions, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Well, thanks so much. And I appreciate you digging into a very serious issue and having candid conversation and wanting to make a change. It's going to take obviously a lot of guys, but it's going to take people like me and you to really see this thing through and try to be an advocate for our fellow Black brother and sisters.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that, because the questions has been asked. What are people going to do next week or next month or next year, right? Like, we fought a civil war over essentially the same issue, racial justice for Black people. And of course, we had the civil rights movement. And yet here we are, 150 years after the Civil War, and we're still seeing I know a lot of white people, and I know very few white people who've been pulled over who were not committing a moving violation just because they allegedly matched a description or so on and so forth. So I know that you'll have both feet into this fight moving forward as well, in part because you have a good heart and good soul, and also in part because you work at an HBCU. And so it affects your situation and the culture even more so than it would on the average Division I basketball team. And I just sincerely hope that other white basketball coaches continue to fight this fight, even after it's no longer trendy to do so. So again, deep gratitude to you, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it, man.
Okay.